What's going on, everybody? I hope you had a good weekend. Now, over the weekend, Bitcoin started rallying. We're now right around 31,000. I'm going to talk about what's going on Bitcoin's chart. We're also going to take a look at Cleanspark. We do have an important trend line that was established back in December of 2022 that we did bounce off of recently. And we do have a new trend to follow. So let's get into this video. If you like these videos, consider hitting the like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. If you want some free stocks and cryptos, check out the links down below. Consider joining my membership to show your support, and let's get into this video. So first off, I want to talk about Bitcoin. Bitcoin has been going up recently. We were, it seems like just yesterday, back at 25,000, and now we're pushing past 30,000. I think people are starting to see what's going to happen with these spot Bitcoin ETFs. It's becoming more of a potential reality as the Fed backs down on their suit against the XRP execs. And as the SEC was recently told that their reasoning for disallowing these spot ETFs is not valid. They need to come up with another reason, and this time it has to be a good one. I do think they're in hot water, and they have to tread very carefully in their decision making here. The courts are closely watching the SEC, and I do think these spot Bitcoin ETFs are going to be approved. And maybe the market suspects that as well. Maybe we're just at that point in the Bitcoin halving. But regardless, looking at the chart, you'll notice that we have been pushing up quite drastically recently. It looks to me like we're finding resistance here right at this like 31.5 area. And this is an important level to watch because it might play out to be a resistance here once more. This yellow line on top here, we have just had this resistance point for Bitcoin for quite a while now. And why this is such an important level is because even back here in May of 2022, we were trading here, unable to break out. Once we didn't break out, we started seeing that pessimism. We started seeing a lot of fear, all the FTX saga, whatnot, and what have you. But what happened was we found resistance a few times and we broke and just continued drastically selling off. We bottomed out in December 2022. Just like Cleanspark. And since then, we've been following this trend until recently breaking down from it. But you'll see that it was a bouncing off point right here in March of 2023 and right here in mid-June. And it was first established back in January of 2023 when we started just coming out of this bottom here. And you'll notice when we broke this important trend line, this important trend support, you saw an accelerated move to the downside. People have been watching this trend line. Once it broke, we saw more selling off. So I'm watching for this trend line. We may find it as resistance and may start trading a bit sideways here, kind of similar to what we did here back in July of 2023. I do believe we're going to break out of this 31.5, 31.6 at some point, but for now we may find resistance there. But to me, Bitcoin is looking quite good on the chart. If we continue to see at least some sideways action, if not a little bit of uptrend, we will very likely see a golden cross. But right now the MAs are pointing up. We're just waiting for a golden cross. And looking at the EMAs, they're extremely bullish. We just recently saw the 50 flip the 200 and the 100, and the price is well above all three EMAs. Now remember, if you move up too far too fast without consolidation, you quickly become overbought on the RSI. People start getting a little worried that things are moving too fast. People start taking profits. So what I want to see is, if we do find resistance here, I want to see us at least maintain this price action here, just see some sideways action, maybe from around 30,000 to about 31.5 or so. I don't want to see this get rejected hard and just start selling off very drastically. I don't really expect that, but I definitely don't want to see that. Now I want to focus on Cleanspark on the chart, but first off, I want to remind you guys that they're continuing to increase their exahash. And while it is a slight negative that we're not going to get to 16 exahash by year end, and this is due to the power companies, this actually isn't due to Cleanspark, but in the end, it is what it is. They didn't reach their 16 exahash goal by year end, and they likely won't, unless we hear some update. But you see that they're going to add another 4.4 exahash, which will bring them up to over 20 exahash, and this will be starting in January 2024. So probably by the end of the first quarter in 2024, we will see Cleanspark get towards that 20 exahash. And that's massive because they're catching up to the Riots and the Maras of the world. I believe this is a much better company than Riot and Mara. Cleanspark has a more attractive hash rate to market cap in comparison. Cleanspark is mining at a slightly lower hash rate, but their market cap is drastically lower than Riot and Mara. That said, I am bullish on Riot overall, not as much bullish on Mara, but let me know if you think I'm wrong there. In the end, Cleanspark made drastic decisions during the bear market to aggressively increase their hash rate, and I do think all that effort will pay off in the bull run. Now, looking at Cleanspark on the chart, we have been following this general ascending channel here. And what I want to show you here is kind of similar to Bitcoin. We have a long-term trend. However, you'll see that we did not break that trend back in early October. We actually maintained it. We continued to bounce here. And this was a trend that was established at the bottom of Cleanspark's price back in December of 2022 when Bitcoin hit its lows and Cleanspark hit its lows. Cleanspark bounced here right around 170. It again utilized this trend line and bounced at $2. And now here right around 350, we did bounce again. And one thing to realize is, you know, Cleanspark has not seen a death cross yet. We saw our golden cross back in May of 2023, And since then, we haven't seen a death cross, although it got very close. If it wasn't for this recent run up, if we just continued selling off, we would have likely saw this death cross right here already with this red and green line. The red line being the 50 MA and the green line being the 200 MA. But because of this recent run here, remember these EMAs are lagging indicators. If we can, at the worst case, move sideways from here, we likely aren't going to see a death cross. But like I said, if it wasn't for this recent bounce off this long-term trend line that I mentioned, if it wasn't for this recent move up, we would have likely seen that death cross. So that's good. Looks like a crisis averted. One thing I do want to see is that 50 MA start actually curling up. It is pointing pretty straight down. But because of this recent move, we are going to see them start leveling out here. Hopefully we start moving higher, but if we move sideways, we likely won't see a death cross. Now, another thing to consider with Cleanspark is their revenue expectation. And in a previous video, I did say that I think that they're going to miss this revenue expectation. And if you want context on that, I'll leave my video down below for you or at the end screen. But they've been continuing to expect better and better quarters where revenue is concerned. And while I do think they're going to miss this quarter's revenue expectation, and by this quarter, I mean last quarter that's going to be reported, the quarter that ends in September. While I do think they're going to miss this number, I do think they're going to beat their last quarter's revenue, which was right around 45 million. But basically, after they gave their expectation for the upcoming earnings report, we basically saw Bitcoin sell off. That's why I don't really expect them to hit that revenue target, but you never know. We may be surprised here. In the end, what I do expect is revenue growth, and I do expect them to turn that loss to a profit. Last quarter, we saw like a $12 million or a $14 million loss, and as long as their expenses don't vastly grow from here, their revenue growth will catch up to their expenses. Now, another thing people are kind of worried about is the halving. You know, Bitcoin miners will be receiving half as much rewards, and Bitcoin's price basically has to double for them to just be at a wash, for them to just be mining the same amount that they were mining before, in terms of money at least. And you got to realize the halving brings a lot of hype. And while maybe right when the halving happens, this kind of negatively affects some miners, if Bitcoin isn't above like 60K, 55K or so, it'll kind of be a negative for them. But overall, you got to realize throughout 2024, throughout 2025, we are very likely to just go parabolic if the past is an indication on the future. So I wouldn't worry about the halving or see the halving as a negative catalyst for these miners, because you have to look at the bigger picture. Bitcoin is becoming more scarce while demand continues. And I do expect Cleanspark to see profitability at some point in 2024. Let me know in the comments below if you agree. And in the end, you know, the halving is still somewhere around a little under 200 days away, and a lot can change by then. You'd be surprised. I mean, it seems like just yesterday we were at 25,000. Now we're pushing over 31,000. A lot can change in a matter of months. But let me know down below in the comments if you think this halving coming up will be a negative effect on the miners, at least for the short term, coming up towards spring or so. Or do you think it won't really matter much? Thanks as always for watching, guys. I appreciate you, and I'll see you next time.